In a video speech on the evening of February 19, President Volodymyr Zelensky confirmed that Russian forces had suffered extremely heavy losses in the town of Vuhledar, in the Donetsk Oblast, eastern Ukraine. "The fighting situation is very difficult," Zelensky said. "Our army is still fighting. We disrupted the Russian offensive line and caused them to suffer extremely serious losses. Many towns and settlements in the Donbass region have become battlegrounds where the Russian army suffered a lot." Zelensky said the main fighting took place at Bakhmut, Vuhledar, Marinka and Kreminna. "The more manpower they lose, the quicker we can win and end this conflict." The Ukrainian leader emphasized that the Kyiv army had drawn new lines of defense during a recent commanders' meeting. According to Zelensky, Ukraine's biggest problem right now is trying to keep control of the Black Sea port city of Odessa and trying to protect the center of Zaporizhia province, which Russian forces are partially occupying. According to the president, Ukraine has achieved good results on its northern border with Russia and Belarus. Ukrainian forces have recaptured many areas from the Russians. "Of course, we cannot share intelligence details, but I want to let everyone know that Ukraine has the ability to predict the situation and we are gradually achieving our goal," Zelensky added. Former Russian commander Andrei Gurylev recently predicted that Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine might drag on until at least 2027 or maybe even longer. His remarks came as part of a televised segment posted to Twitter on Sunday with English subtitles by Anton Gashchenko, advisor to the Minister of Internal Affairs of Ukraine. The ex-commander was asked whether Russia should use certain military weapons before the end of the war or fight with ordinary and less advanced ones without GPS or satellite. "Do not wait for any end of the war, do not wait for anything. This end of the war may take a long time. In general, I predict that it will be 2027 to 2030, not earlier. We need to win with modern weapons. We need to deploy them in the troops," said Gurylev. It still remains unclear when the war, which was launched last February by Russian President Vladimir Putin, might end and on what terms. However, some experts said that the Kremlin is preparing citizens for what might be a years-long conflict. The RIA Novosti news agency reported on February 19, citing the director of Russia's defense corporation Rostec, Sergei Chemezov, that the corporation is increasing production of Kinzhal hypersonic missile systems. A notorious weapon used by Russia to attack Ukrainian targets and bases in a special military operation. "Initially Rostec didn't need to produce that much, but now we are increasing production," Chemezov said. Chemezov added that Rostec produces a large number of products for the Ministry of Defense, adding that the level of production has increased significantly, sometimes by 50 times, mainly related to ammunition. According to the manufacturers, the missile of the Kinzhal hypersonic complex is a missile that can confront all current air defense and defense systems, can carry nuclear warheads and is equipped on MiG fighters. 31K of Russia. Chief of Russia's investigative committee Alexander Bastrykhin said in an interview with TASS. The investigation of the terror attack on the Crimean Bridge has proved that it was organized by Ukrainian special services. The investigation has proved that Ukrainian special services were behind the organization of the terror attack on the Crimean Bridge, he said. He recalled that 12 people, including Ukrainian, Armenian, Georgian and Russian nationals, who were involved in this crime have already been identified and 8 of them are in custody. Expert studies, including technical, of evidence found on the site continue. All available information ID being summed up and analyzed to establish a full picture of the incident and identify those involved in this crime, he said. The terror attack on the Crimean Bridge was committed in the morning on October 8, 2022, ruining 2 spans of the bridge's motorway section running to Crimea and 4 people were killed. According to British military officials, Russia is likely using spy balloons in a bid to get Ukrainian forces to expand its stock of surface-to-air missiles. The UK Ministry of Defence, MOD, said earlier on February 12, 2023, Ukraine's Air Force reported sighting balloons over eastern Dnipropetrovsk. On February 15, Ukrainian forces announced that they had shot down many hot air balloons over the capital Kyiv. Ukrainian officials say these devices are fitted with radar reflectors to jam the country's air defenses. It is likely that the balloons were Russian. They likely represent a new tactic by Russia to gain information about Ukrainian air defense systems and compel the Ukrainians to expend valuable stock of surface-to-air missiles and ammunition. Balloon-like objects have also been reported in Moldova and Estonia. The link between the cases is unknown at this time. Moscow has not yet commented on the above information. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations said Sunday that China would cross a red line if the country decided to provide lethal military aid to Russia for its invasion of Ukraine. Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield told CNN's, "We also have to be clear that if there are any thoughts and efforts by the Chinese and others to provide lethal support to the Russians in their brutal attack against Ukraine, that is unacceptable." As CNN previously reported, the U.S. has begun seeing disturbing trend lines in China's support for Russia's military. The officials would not describe in detail what intelligence the U.S. has seen suggesting a recent shift in China's posture, but said U.S. officials have been concerned enough that they have shared the intelligence with allies and partners at the Munich Security Conference over the past several days. Blinken warned Beijing of serious consequences for relations between the two countries if China directly supports Moscow's efforts in the conflict. On the other hand, the top U.S. diplomat also admitted that until now China has not crossed the red line mentioned above. On the other hand, Wang Yi said Beijing urged Washington to work towards a political solution to the conflict, rather than escalate the military confrontation between Moscow and Kyiv. Columnist Thomas Friedman warned on Sunday that China could push the Russia-Ukraine conflict into a true world war. Friedman spoke about China-Russia relations and said, "China, first of all, they would like the war prolonged because it keeps us, United States, tied down and we're burning through all our weaponry and all our military stock." Friedman said that he thinks China would like a weak Russia that's forced to be economically dependent on them, adding that China doesn't want a collapsed Russia. "That's a very bad signal for Taiwan if the West could take Russia down. So, I think the Chinese might be concerned about that. But if China does that, it will be a real global conflict." Retired Lieutenant General Mark Hertling, former commanding general of U.S. Army Europe, told Newsweek on Sunday, "It is in the interest of China to see the U.S. continuing to support Ukraine while the U.S. and other Western nations are supplying weapons, support and intelligence in Ukraine's existential fight. China is able to further expand their strategic reach in many areas beyond their border while continuing to address their own domestic challenges." He added, "China continues to see their competitors distracted." Similarly, retired Lieutenant General Ben Hodges and former U.S. Army Europe commander, China is now actively supporting Russia by providing aid despite the sanctions. "Beijing knows well that the United States will be willing to stick with Ukraine. If we can't or won't do that, then the CCP leadership is not going to be too impressed with anything." Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki said on Sunday that he and U.S. President Joe Biden will discuss possibly increasing U.S. troop presence in Poland and making it more permanent during Biden's upcoming visit to Warsaw. Morawiecki said on CBS's Face the Nation, "We are in the process of discussion with President Biden's administration about making their troop presence more permanent and increasing them. I'm very grateful also for sending new Patriot systems and other very modern weapons and munitions because this is also to some extent a proxy for presence of soldiers, but of course the two go in tandem," he said. The United States bolstered its troop presence in Poland ahead of the February 24, 2022 invasion and currently has roughly 11,000 personnel on rotation there, according to CBS. Biden will visit Poland over February 20 to 22 to mark the first anniversary of Russia's invasion of neighboring Ukraine. Prime Minister Viktor Orban said on Saturday, "Sanctions introduced by the EU against Russia over its military operation in Ukraine have cost Hungary's economy €10 billion," Orban stated in his annual State of the Nation speech. The anti-Russia measures imposed nearly a year ago have had a devastating impact on Budapest by sending energy prices soaring and raising costs throughout the economy. Sanctions have pulled 4 trillion forints, over €10 billion, out of the pockets of Hungarians, the PM said. According to Orban, the punitive measures were supposed to hit Russia, but hit Europe. "We did not deprive Russia of resources, we gave Russia even more money, and Russian energy supplies, in monetary terms, grew by 70%, he said. The Hungarian leader added that with sharply increased energy costs, EU nations have been struggling to rein in rampant inflation. Orban is a vocal critic of the bloc's approach to the conflict in Ukraine, and has repeatedly said that sanctions are hurting the EU more than they hurt Russia. The head of the German Chambers of Industry and Commerce, DHK, said, "The Ukraine war will have cost the German economy around €160 billion, $171 billion, or some 4% of its gross domestic output, in lost value creation by the end of the year." DHK chief Peter Adrian told that means GDP per capita in Europe's largest economy will be €2,000. Lower industry makes up a higher share of the economy in Germany and the sector is for the most part energy intensive, meaning German companies have been especially hard hit by a surge in energy prices, which last year hit record highs in Europe. German industry is set to pay about 40% more for energy in 2023 than in 2021. The growth outlook for 2023 and 2024 is therefore also lower than in many other countries, Adrian said. Germany, which for decades relied on relatively cheap Russian pipeline gas, now has especially high energy prices compared with the United States that has its own natural gas reserves, while France has abundant nuclear power. The gas price is around 3-5 times higher than in the United States, he said. North Korea fired 2 more ballistic missiles off its east coast on Monday, February 20, as the powerful sister of leader Kim Jong-un warned U.S. forces to halt military drills, saying the reclusive nuclear state could turn the Pacific into a firing range. Kim Yo-jong warned against increased presence of U.S. strategic assets on the Korean peninsula after the United States held joint air drills with its Asian allies over the weekend. The North state-run television KRT confirmed it fired 2 projectiles from a multiple rocket launcher aiming at targets 395 kilometers (245 miles) and 337 kilometers (209 miles) away, respectively. The launches come just 2 days after North Korea fired an intercontinental ballistic missile (ICBM) into the sea off Japan's west coast, prompting the United States to hold joint air exercises with South Korea and separately with Japan on Sunday, February 19. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Turkey on Sunday, February 19, for an official visit and discussions on how Washington can further assist Ankara as it grapples with the aftermath of a devastating earthquake. The top U.S. diplomat landed at Incirlik Air Base in Turkey's southern province of Adana, from where he took a helicopter tour of the quake-struck area with his Turkish counterpart, Mevlut Cavusoglu. Within the framework of the visit, Blinken announced a new $100 million aid package for Turkey and Syria to deal with the aftermath of the earthquake. Since the earthquake, the United States has sent a search and rescue team to Turkey along with medical supplies, concrete breaking machinery, and additional funding of $85 million in humanitarian aid that also covers Syria. This is Mr. Blinken's first visit to Turkey. Blinken will hold further bilateral talks in Ankara on Monday. Also topping the agenda will be the stalled NATO bids of Sweden and Finland, which Turkey has so far refused to ratify, saying Stockholm in particular has harbored what it calls members of terrorist groups. Ankara has recently indicated it would approve only Finland. A fortnight after the catastrophic earthquake that laid waste to parts of the country, Turkey has said rescue teams have stopped recovery efforts in all but 2 hardest-hit provinces. Disaster Relief Agency Chief Yunus Sezer, during a press briefing in Ankara, said, "In many of our provinces, search and rescue efforts have been completed. They continue in Kahramanmaraş and Hatay provinces." AFAD data shows that, so far, Turkey has recorded more than 41,000 people killed by earthquakes. Much of the Pazarcık district in Kahramanmaraş province, the epicenter of the quake, was left in ruins, with thousands of buildings collapsing. Sezer said search and rescue efforts continued at about 40 buildings in the provinces but expected this number to fall by Sunday evening. Pope Francis on Sunday, February 19, prayed for victims of one of the worst earthquakes to hit Turkey and Syria. Appearing at the Basilica's window overlooking St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis delivered a homily in front of a large number of faithful. The Holy Father pays special attention to the earthquake disasters in Turkey and Syria, which have left tens of thousands of people dead and millions in need of help. The love of Jesus asks us to let ourselves be touched by the situations of those who are tried. For the many victims of the earthquake, Francis said. Pope Francis also prayed for the safety of the Ukrainian people and those affected by the Great Storm in New Zealand. 2 earthquakes of magnitude 7.6 and 7.7 on the Richter scale 2 weeks ago, more than 46,000 people in Turkey and Syria were killed, and millions of people were affected. The storm struck the country's North Island on February 12 and tracked down the east coast, inflicting widespread devastation. On the red carpet of the BAFTA Film Awards ceremony, the daughter of an opposition politician to President Putin, Alexei Navalny, voiced criticism of the Moscow government. Daria Navalnaya is the daughter of Alexei Navalny, an opposition politician in Russia. She was present at the BAFTA Awards ceremony on the evening of February 19 to accept the award on behalf of her father when his documentary was honored at this year's BAFTA. Speaking on the red carpet, Ms. Navalnaya said her family has made great efforts to raise their voice in opposition to the Moscow government. Her father was sentenced to prison in 2022 when Moscow accused him of spreading disinformation. "We are doing everything we can to get Dad out and fight Putin," Ms. Navalnaya said. Investigative journalist Christo Grozev, who appeared in his documentary Alexei Navalny, was also blacklisted by Russia. UK police have asked this journalist not to appear at the BAFTA Awards ceremony due to security concerns. Xiang Xiang, a 5-year-old giant panda born in Tokyo's Ueno Zoo, will head to China on Tuesday after making her last public appearance in Japan on Sunday. Xiang Xiang was born on June 12, 2017 to mother Xin Xin and father Ri Ri through natural mating at the Tokyo Zoo. She has been a major attraction for visitors and the local community ever since. Under an arrangement with the Chinese government, Xiang Xiang was scheduled to be returned to China when she turned 2 years old, but her return was postponed several times due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Some zoo goers said they are reluctant to say goodbye to the panda. "I love Xiang Xiang very much. This is all pictures of Xiang Xiang. I made Xiang Xiang goods with the pictures I took. Maybe I will start to feel the loss when I see her later today." The visit and farewell to Xiang Xiang was only for 2,600 lucky lottery winners, but some fans who didn't win still came. "I did not win the lottery to see Xiang Xiang for the last time. But we came anyway to feel the atmosphere nearby," said another visitor. Caretakers at the zoo said Xiang Xiang loves to eat apples, and they hope she finds a suitable mating partner in China. Daniil Medvedev claimed his first title of the 2023 season in Rotterdam on Sunday, February 19, defeating Italy's Jannik Sinner. The sixth seed came back strong after dropping a hotly contested first set to win convincingly. Medvedev returns to the world's top 10 ranked players with victory at the ATP 500 event, climbing from 11th to 9th ahead of Hubert Hurkacz and Holger Rune. The title is the Russians' 16th at tour level, of which all but one have come on hard courts. Revelers danced away under the sun on Sunday, February 19, in Rio de Janeiro's Cordo do Boitada, one of the city's most traditional block parties. Jubilant spectators watched various music groups play on stage, performing songs in honor of iconic Brazilian musicians such as Gilberto Gil, Martinho de Villa and Gal Costa. Some attendees, such as Alex Farrow, had been anxiously awaiting to return to the streets during carnival season after COVID-19 restrictions. "I feel really grateful and happy to be here again. We are completely free in this vibrant atmosphere." This year, the theme of the carnival in Rio was democracy, chosen as a response to the anti-democratic riots by supporters of Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro in January. In line with the topic, the backdrop in the Cordo do Boitada's stage read the words "land, reparation, culture." Cordo do Boitada was created by students and musicians in 1996. Carnival Rio takes place from February 17 to 25. Experts hope this year's festivities will help recover the city's economy, which deeply impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Italians in the northern city of Ivrea marked carnival season on Sunday, February 19, with the annual Battle of the Oranges, where revelers take aim at each other in a time-honored fruit-throwing skirmish. The event, dating back to medieval times, sees teams dressed up in brightly colored medieval costumes and engage in a fierce orange-throwing fight that leaves the cobbled streets covered in a thick carpet of mashed pulp. This year marks the return of the Battle of the Oranges after its cancellation 3 years in a row due to COVID-19. "This morning I had a beautiful anxiety. It's like when Christmas comes. Only it's been 3 years since Christmas came, so the presents are really nice this year." According to a legend dating to the 12th century, Violetta, the daughter of a local miller, was bound by feudal laws to spend her wedding night with the town's evil lord. In order to save her honor for her betrothed, she beheaded the nobleman and set Ivrea free from his tyranny. The orange-throwing battle, with participants divided into nobles and commoners, with the oranges symbolizing the tyrant's head. It also has an implication of fidelity, when young women stand on the balcony, dropping oranges and flowers for their loved ones to catch. This is also one of the events for Christians to prepare for the Holy Lent season. The current Ukraine conflict has also seen ordinary people turn into volunteer soldiers participating in the front. For example, Ukrainian man Alexander Shamshur, 41, his day job is a hairdresser, but at night is a drone hunter. Mr. Shamshur is one of tens of thousands of volunteers involved in the defense of Ukraine's skies. According to a recent article published on Reuters, as the one-year anniversary of the Russian-Ukrainian conflict broke out approaches, Ukraine is becoming more and more adept at shooting down missiles and drone of Russia, and Mr. Shamshur is proud of his role. Members of his territorial defense unit, including a lawyer and a businessman, brought down an Iranian-made Shahid 136 drone with a World War II-era machine gun. Shamshur said, "I am a very happy person. Because I am defending my country and protecting the Ukrainian people. At the same time, I also go to the barbershop and work with people, do what I'm good at, cut hair and talk to clients. He said that as a civilian, he had never thought of running away. Shamshur said that on the night of December 29 to 30th, his unit shot down 2 drones over Kyiv. His team also passed on the skills they had learned to other units. While working in the hair salon, Shamshur was still wearing khaki military uniform, saying he didn't want to talk to the client about the war, because it was darkness, as opposed to light, in the peaceful part of his life.